Hey, True Believers, Englentine here with a bit of an article that's making its rounds. Christopher Priest welcomes Vampirella to the real world. There are reasons. Apparently, this writer, editor, Chris Arant, kind of got a little testy with him, and we're going to see what this is all about. He gets testy because of identity politics. See, Christopher Priest, for a long time now, has been done with identity politics. He was the guy you would send to write black characters, and after a while, he's like, you're giving them to me because I'm a black man. That's wrong. I'm a writer. I could write anything, and he said he didn't want to write any more black characters. Of course, that changed eventually. After a while, he wrote Black Panther, but I think that was more that he wrote it on his terms, and it wasn't just, I'm the black guy, therefore I should write the black characters. So when this guy, Chris Arant, kind of got testy, he had some words. So anyway, this beginning part is basically the introduction. Vampirella, launching in July 17, illustrated by Aaron Gundes, published by Dynamite. She's in a plane wreck, kills everybody she knows, and now she's a vampire in a world that doesn't have monsters, and she has to basically get through life being a monster in a world that is not used to monsters. And then, of course, it gets down to the questions. So Newsarama asks, someone walking around in that Trina Robbins designed costume is bound to get some head turns. If I know you as much as I think I do, you're going to tackle that head on, right? How are you going to get into the subject of the costume? Priest responds, well, yes, we will have a go at it. The basic argument is simple. Where do you draw the line between women's liberation and women's exploitation, and who gets to draw it? Who gets to define femininity, and why should an extraterrestrial have to submit to that definition? It's like the world woke up in the last few years and realized we actually have two genders and both of them matter. So we now have a heightened scrutiny of themes and behaviors, and that poor bastard Joe Biden gets caught up in the switches. I'll confess I'm terrified of women because I'm a Joe Biden. I was taught to pay a lady a compliment and open doors, and I want to be friendly and accessible, but I'm absolutely terrified of having my day. I was going to talk about this, but then I saw the next line to the next paragraph. Let me finish that, and then, or let me finish this, and I want to talk about it because all of it is kind of in the same ilk. It is comical to me that I am far too often seen as creepy by women, especially black women, because they have been conditioned by their personal experience and their media consumption to misinterpret it as simple hello these days. Hello, these days I cannot pay a woman a compliment without a legal preamble and insurances that no, I am not hitting on you, and even then I get skunk eye of suspicion, which is a little insulting because of this guilty until proven innocent defensive posture presumes I am other people, or that the bar is set so low for me that I'll jump into bed with just about anybody I happen to meet. It's like we just gone too far now to the point where women are not just being protected, but being alienated to some extent because I have no earthly clue how to deal with them, and I'm frankly scared to shake their hand. Okay, let's talk about that. I think he has nailed the biggest problem of #MeToo. At once, I'm sure it was in the best of intentions, but it has gone to the point where, yeah, why bother? We get reports of businessmen not wanting to do business with female colleagues because what if? What if? Because you are guilty until proven innocent. And worse, even if proven innocent, the guilt's still there. You still lose your job. You still lose your family or what? Maybe your social media is just clobbered. You cannot do what you used to be able to do because now jobs look at social media before they hire you. So, yeah, he's exactly right about that. On the other hand, he talked about Joe Biden. And it's one thing to say hello, to hold the door, to pay a compliment. It's another to sniff a woman's hair while their husband is right in front of them giving a political speech. That's a little bit creepy. Joe Biden may not be the one you want to bring up as somebody you want to defend in this particular instance, but that's just my opinion. And so Christopher Priest continues. So is Vampirella's wardrobe And so Christopher Priest continues. So is Vampirella's wardrobe choice sexist? I don't know. Vampirella obviously doesn't think so. As I see her, she comes from a culture much like Star Trek's Betased, where people wear little or nothing at all. If anything, Vampy wonders why we humans choose to smother ourselves in so much fabric, and why we're also bound by self-loathing. There are hundreds of women who enjoy cosplaying as Vampirella, and maybe hundreds of thousands offended by the character. How do we reconcile all of that for the 21st century? The one thing I won't do is cover her up. I accepted the gig, write Vampirella. If you change the outfit, she's no longer Vampirella. Frankly, her costume is the only thing about her, well, okay, her pansexuality, that makes her at all shocking or controversial. My goal, and the readers will have to let us know if we're passing or failing, is to make this book as much about femininity as about blood-sucking. The storyline is driven by women, mostly populated by women of all shapes, sizes, and ethnicities, and most of them dress as sexy as they dare. The singer-rapper Lizzo is a terrific example of this. Is her blatant sexuality liberating, or is she being exploited? How about Beyonce? Do we put Vampy in a raincoat but cheer Bey on? All right. I think Christopher Priest is going to do this. I think he's going to be good on it, and that explains all of it. He says it's all going to be about femininity, but he does not see a woman's sexuality as something to be exploited, but something they use. Just because the woman is sexy doesn't mean she's being sexual. Just because she wears a certain amount of clothes doesn't mean that men control her. That means they're in control of what they wear. He brings up Beyonce or somebody named Lizzo. I have no idea who that is. But point being is they're in control. They're sexy as heck, but they're in control. But according to the feminists, who I have said from day one, consider women to be weak, they're being Newsarama asks, so, Priest, Vampirella's here on Earth. What would you do if you found yourself, I don't know, sharing a cab with Vampy? Priest says, I'd ask the driver to pull over and let me out. I'm a Christian, so I have these issues with all of that, fornicating in your mind stuff. I don't live a perfect life, but I try to avoid cluttering up my conscience. Among the things the printed page cannot convey is the amazing, intoxicating glow and, yes, smell of a woman. All women are beautiful from 8 to 80, regardless of weight, height, or nationality. I wouldn't share a cab with a woman as underdressed as Vampy, which sounds hypocritical because I'm writing her, but I write Deathstroke too, and I wouldn't share a cab with him either. You know, I always thought questions like that were really ridiculously stupid. What would you do if you found yourself, I don't know, man. It's like one reason, okay, why would Vampirella be taking a cab? Two, is she actually dressed like that, or is she dressed in something else? And, yeah, I don't know. That's an odd question to ask somebody, but I think he handled that pretty well. And yeah, I wouldn't share a cab with Deathstroke either. Except I would take long enough to ask him why he's riding in a cab. So Newsarama continues. On the flip side of this, Vampirella is stranded on Earth. What's going through her mind? And Priest asks how stupid and primitive we are. It's not arrogance. I believe any visitor from another world would surf the net for a few hours, come away shaking their heads. I watched an episode of Little Miss Atlanta yesterday, and Jesus, we're just idiots. The moms fighting and bickering and cursing in front of these little girls, berating the little girls. This is sickening. That's entertainment? Well, Priest, you watched it. I gotta tell you, until the moment I read the words Little Miss Atlanta, I had no idea that a show called Little Miss Atlanta happened. You watched it, Chris. That's why it's entertainment. That's why it's on the air. Newsarama asks, this comes over a decade after your previous stint with Vampirella. Harris Publishing's Vampirella Revelations with artist Eric Battle. That run had some issues, but you're back here again. What makes is something you want to return to? What makes is something you want to return to? Dude! Seriously, you're an editor. This is the second time in this article. All right? Oy vey. So Priest answers, really, I did a run. I remember doing a silent issue and vaguely remember doing something with Eric, a good bud. But that was way back. I really hadn't considered this as a return. I just pivoted and stared into Baruchi's hypnotic vampire eyes and ran dozens of scenarios through my feeble brain, coming to one conclusion: this would be an interesting experiment, a writer's challenge, and writers love challenges. Newsrama continues. Big picture, what are your goals going with this ongoing? To not have the women of America torch my house. This run will be a different take on Vampy as any that have come before, which is not to say better. Better is subjective. I'm sure a great many Vampy fans will hate what we're up to. Maybe they'll come along. Maybe I'll get fired. If I wasn't nervous about it, it wouldn't be worth doing. All right, so the interview that we just did was the preamble. There's an editor's note. The above interview was conducted via email earlier this week, and we received all of Mr. Priest's responses along with our original questions. Newsrama asked Priest if he would respond to follow-up questions. Friday by email, he agreed, and those questions and answers follow. Newsrama asks, Priest, our original questions to you were about Vampirella comic book, and our role is to talk about that and not audit your personal life, but your responses appear to be hyper-aware of social climate. You seem to lament in terms of relationships between genders and conduct towards one another. Priest says, I lament the social climate in general on all levels. I lament our lack of civility and our lack of empathy, lack of patience and understanding. I hate the way we assassinate one another with our thumbs. All this hostility in social and other media, it's just not gender issues. Yet empathizing with Joe Biden without citing the actual specific behavior he's under scrutiny for, stating things like the amazing intoxicating glow and yes, smell of a woman, and by offering your often seen as creepy by women, it seems like intentionally inviting the sort of reaction assumptions you state you're afraid of, and inviting the same scrutiny Biden is under. Was this your intent? Are you prepared for pushback to your words and questions to be asked? Priest answers, and this is a lot. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. But let's start by saying I seriously doubt anyone reading this is not aware of the Biden issue to which I am referring. I come neither to defend Biden nor bury him, so I think you're probably taking my poor Joe reference a bit too seriously. I wasn't trying to litigate Biden, only to make a point about how hypersensitive and over-politicized our nation is and how this will impact Vampirella in her series. Assembling disparate quotes to paint me as some kind of deviant makes that point for me. I stand by my statements. The amazing intoxicating glow and yes, smell of a woman is something difficult, if not impossible, to convey in literature, which was my point. But your question was about me sitting in a taxi with a near-naked woman, and I answered that honestly. And my point was relevant to understanding the challenges and conflicts Vampirella will face in this series. This is the environment Vampirella finds herself in, people misinterpreting her actions, words, and motives. This is why I mentioned it, to place the work we are doing with Vampirella into context. We're a person, like Vampy, walking around in our world or riding in a taxi with me. She would be misinterpreted, and every word she says would be drilled into looking for the worst possible interpretation of it. I can't help but wonder why anyone anywhere speaks publicly, because no words spoken by anyone can withstand this level of ridiculous scrutiny. They continue. In another response, you state, it's like the world woke up in the last few years and realized we actually have two genders and both of them matter. I knew this was going to bring up something. While not assuming your intent one way or the other, it seems to overlook genders outside the male-female paradigm. Can you speak to that? Genders outside the male-female paradigm. Can you speak to that? Priest says, gender, noun, one, either of two sexes, male and female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences, rather than biological ones. The term is also used more broadly to denote a range of identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female, a condition that affects people of both genders. I wrote an ecumenical commentary in support of gender and LGBTQ issues. Chris, I invite everyone to read it. It was a simple interview. I was promoting a comic book. As a really busy writer, I was typing really fast and speaking honestly while engaging with you. What I won't do, not even for my own safety, is censor myself or try to anticipate every horrible way someone might choose to misinterpret something I've written or said. If anything, that just makes my point for me about how free speech is being compromised. It's a tough environment to publish comic books in, and because every publisher is terrified by the spectrum of extreme possible reactions from an increasingly intolerant environment where everybody's playing gotcha and looking for the worst possible and most extremely negative interpretations of everything. The whole point of free speech is my duty to defend others' rights to have it, not to shout them down or demonize them. And I think, and this is me, not him, of course. I'm not reading at this point. I think that he has gotten to the point of why we actually see a lot of stuff being done in our media. And by our media, I mean we are fans of comic books and everything's going fine. But then the blue hairs come. Then the people who shave one side of their head and flip it over to the other and say they're offended at everything come in. And because they're the loud ones, because they're the ones that, oh my gosh, if you offend me, it means you hate gay people, you hate black people, you hate Chinese people, you hate everybody who's not white, male, and Christian, and that makes you bad because you don't like Riri Williams. Or they'll say something stupid along those lines, and because nobody wants to be a racist. It's so freaking scary to be called a racist if you are afraid that people will believe it. That some people change their shit over it. And I think that's what he brought up here. That's why things get done, because Marvel, DC, and all these other places, everything, are so afraid to be called out for being a racist that they will go along with it. And they will call you a racist just as well for not liking their stuff. That's one of the reasons I did the Monica Rambeau video, was to show that, you know what? You live in a glass house, Marvel. Most people do. At one point in time, you've probably done something that, if it ever gets on social media, it's not going to look good for you. But I think Christopher Priest really puts them in their place on this. Look, it's freedom of speech. You took this way too far. Just take it for what it is. Take it for what it said. I mean, why would you even have to ask a follow-up question? It's the world where assuming your intent one way or another, it seems to overlook genders out. I mean, don't you just want to smack them for asking that? That's me getting a little bit off topic, but I think that Christopher Priest handled this absolutely wonderfully, and I think this, what's his name? Chris? I think his name was Chris also. What was it? Yeah, Chris Arndt. Yikes. One, you're not a very good editor, dude. You couldn't even edit your own article here. Two, you tried to do some gotcha with Christopher Priest, but he's too sharp for you. In all honesty, from what I've heard, I'm looking forward to the next Vampirella series. I'm looking forward to seeing what Christopher Priest does with it, and I like what he said here. But that's just my opinion. What is yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you haven't done it already. And hey, do us a favor. Go on over to Ko-Fi or to Patreon, drop $1 in the till, and helps keep making videos for you. Help support the channel. You can even do that by going over to Amazon and ordering something off our store. Buy something. It helps you. You get something you like, and it helps us because we get a cut. And I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers. Oh, and all of those links are in the description below. Thank you very, very much for watching.